Welcome to Rainbow Soul Podcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Welcome everyone to Rainbow Soul Astrology Forecast for May 1st through the 7th. And I'm Hollis Taylor, and I want to let you know you can get readings from me at divineandrogen.com. Of course, my link is in the description. And
hi there, I'm Bright Hawk. It's great to be back. I hope you're having a great week. And I am a musician, a storyteller, author of the book The Dancing Hippo, which is just precious storybook. You can find out more about me at brighthawkproductions.com. And we're excited to talk about a very intense, very busy week. We have a lunar eclipse.
yeah,
The eclipse is a big deal. The eclipses happen, between the new moon. We had a new moon April 20th, and now we're having the full moon on May 5th. And some beautiful blessings to talk about, don't we?
and I'm sorry Lacrosse is not here. There's a lot going on. We are filming this at the beginning of the eclipse. So, crap happens, and I think he's fixing it. So,
Mercury retrograde, a lot of stuff has to be fixed.
Yeah, so, so we'll miss Lacrosse this week for sure. But he is always helping us by editing and helping us get it ready for you guys on Spotify. So I appreciate if you're listening to this on Spotify or wherever you might be listening. Please share, comment. Somebody just commented the other day and I was like, woohoo, thank you. It's just that simple, my friends, just that simple. So if you can comment or you can share and things like that, we totally appreciate it. Now, I'm going to start out with a little meditation. So take a deep breath, my friends. Take a deep breath and just allow yourself to sink in no matter where you are. We are filming from Grand Junction, Colorado from our van. Just in case you're wondering what's going on. That's what's going on. Thank you for being patient. Take another deep breath. And just let it all out. Now, my friends, I want you to take a moment and imagine the night sky. And I want you to imagine what happens during an eclipse while you're looking up at a beautiful moon, and how it kind of slowly disappears. If you've ever seen one, or maybe you've witnessed a video, and you can watch it slowly disappear. It's always a reminder to me how big planet Earth is. And as you watch this very slow eclipse, recognize how big our planet is and how big the sun is and the moon. They're so big it's even hard to comprehend in our brains. And when you start to imagine the size of planet Earth and how slow it is, or seems so slow from down here, the slow spin of our planet, you recognize that time is a process, that things slowly unfold. You recognize that slowly our life unfolds. And that slowly and over time, things happen and unfold for you. Things evolve, things change. Oh, thank goodness they change. Take that deep breath. And take this moment to recognize that as you walk your path, that no doubt the universe is unfolding exactly as it should. And that little quote stands out in these moments to remind us that no matter what is going on in our lives, that it will change. And that from that, something is to come of this, no matter how hard it really is. So hold on tight, no matter what kind of experience you're having, and recognize that as your life unfolds, it will change. And take that moment to ask. Just get quiet for a moment and ask the universe, what am I to learn from this? What is supposed to come of this? If the answer hasn't come to you yet, I encourage you to find a sweet place outdoors or to go out under the night sky and ask that same question. And as we come back to ourselves, back to our here and now, to be present in the here and now, come back into your body. Feel your feet on the floor, your bottom on the seat, and your body as present and centered and grounded as you can find. And come back to the here and now. Woo! Thank you, Bright Hawk. It was so cool to actually watch you play because your instrument actually disappears in the vibration in that background. I guess it might be the vibration or something like that.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch, and I was thinking, oh, it's probably the vibration of the instrument itself, you know, and the visuals that we have on right now.
Instrument, it's a Hong Panard. For those
Yeah.
of you who are familiar with steel hand pans.
So hopefully you were watching that Spotify. If you didn't, go catch the video and just watch the opening thing, because the handpan just kind of disappears, but only when she taps it. So it comes back and then tap and then it goes away, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? What kind of flying saucer is that? So yeah, it had a real flying saucer feel to it, which is always fun. Hey. All right.
All right. So, what a week we have, Holly.
Yeah. First thing I'm going to say, though, is to everyone out there who's used to us filming from our beautiful little studio, beautiful space in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. We are actually on the western slope. So you have to go up and over the mountains, and we're on the other side in Grand Junction, which, if you look on your map, is kind of near Moab, Utah, but we're not quite to the desert yet. And so this area's got trees and grass and things like that, but it's also very Colorado feel. It's a little bit more on the conservative side than what we're used to, but hey, we're doing a good job, okay? And we are inside of our camper van. It's not exactly, you know, the background could get very confusing for if you're watching Zoom. So we're using these cool backgrounds. And I just wanted to explain that part. We are traveling for our nonprofit called Let's Dance. We're visiting some nursing homes out here. It's called letsdanceactivities.org if you want to learn more about it. We visit nursing homes. Bright Hawk plays the handpan, and I dance with the elderly folks. And I just get them moving in their seat. You know, I instruct them to kick their feet or whatever. It's a lot of fun. And it's our nonprofit that took us around the country before the pandemic. Okay. It is part of our astrology chart. It is part of our synastry in the 12th house. We both have a lot of stuff in the 12th house, and the 12th house tends to work with nursing homes and things like that. So if you have a lot of things in the 12th house and you find yourself attracted to nursing homes or hospice, it also has a lot to do with like past lives. It has a lot to do with psychic sense and intuition, which is how we developed Let's Dance. Actually, it was through the intuition. I first got a download, and then as Bright Hawk and I worked together, it was always through intuition. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the manifestation of Let's Dance. And it comes through as very much a healing modality. One of the veterans homes uses us as a write-off for drug-free treatment. Because, of course, we're not dispensing any medications. We're just playing music and getting people to move and relax. So, and the good news is hopefully you can't, I'm sorry if you heard the traffic during our meditation, but I'm pretty sure you can't hear it now. So you can just be grateful for that. We tried to find a quiet spot.
Tried really hard.
We tried. It's soccer games and, van life, RV life. If you ever wondered what it was like.
Park, and then all of a sudden we were descended upon. Kids are playing the game. Spring is here and game's on. So
yeah, and
doing the best we can.
And van life is kind of like that. Like van life is you often it's a weird thing sometimes. The other day we pulled up and I was like, ooh, look, you find this little corner while they're doing their track meet. And next thing I know, the whole parking lot filled up. It was an empty parking lot when I got there. By the time we were done warming up the soup and eating soup for lunch, the whole place was packed. And that's van life. So
now it's baseball time.
Oh, okay. Now it's time for a game. Right. Okay. And so it's okay.
We're doing the best we can. Let's get to the reading.
Yeah.
Let's get to this week's forecast, because what a week we have.
It's
you don't want to hear about what we were dealing with in a parking lot.
Well, sometimes people like to hear. Sometimes people like to hear about it. Yeah. So
we have to move on because it's starting to irritate me and I want to get focused on something else. So I'll speak for myself. Okay. Let's get on to the forecast.
Okay, so Soulstrology. We're doing this for May 1st through the 7th, okay? So because May 1st, at first I was looking at this and I was like, oh, could I take some things out to make it a little less overwhelming for y'all? But the honest truth is that with the T-square pointing at Venus in Gemini, first of all, I started thinking about that and I was like, Venus in Gemini. Oh my, which is about relationships and things like that. But it could also be about Venus is about relationships and Gemini can sometimes be about relationships. It can also be about like sisterhood or twinhood. I thought it was interesting that someone today in an astrology Facebook group that I'm part of, that I sometimes help people figure things out, somebody posted a synastry of them and their friend and wanted to know if they had like a past life connection. I don't think what I seen was, yeah, I see your past life connection, but I think this person hurt this person in a past life and now they owe something to each other in this life.
Careful.
But eventually she figured out, oh, that does kind of make sense. And it's like, right. So, she was trying to understand what the underlying distrust was. So, yeah, and that's when astrology can be really helpful and people can learn, so anyway, so this T-square with Venus and Gemini, I'm kind of looking at it going, it could be that kind of relationship where, Venus and Gemini just makes me think about intellectual, talking, and even voicing, coming across as a couple and voicing out loud. That's going to be your best engagement, trying to team up with another person. That's going to be your best way to engage away from the Neptune in opposition to the moon and Ceres, because Neptune is about illusions and can sometimes be about I think it was Nadia Shah just said that it could have something to do with tears. I had never heard that before, but I thought that was interesting. And with it in Pisces, I was like, oh, for sure, with Neptune in Pisces.
And its rulership, very watery in its rulership, right?
Right. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe that could be. And so, and in opposition to the moon and Ceres down there in Virgo, I was like, uh-oh. So if you're feeling a pull, especially in regards to a relationship, I would just say try to team up with that person, try to find the similarities that you do have, and try to talk it out. Try to talk it out. And I know Mercury's in retrograde right now, but that's probably what you need. So if you find yourself struggling with communication, then I would just try to take a deep breath, walk away, and come back to each other. And that's that main T square. There is an opposition with Pluto and Pallas Athena, and even Lilith over there in the first house. You can see Pluto there on the right in Aquarius. And that opposition there has been going on for a while. But that just means that there's going to be some things that might make you, maybe you might get sick, or there might be some power dynamics, or some things about control and power that don't feel good, that you'll have to try to find a better strategy for. So my suggestion on that opposition is to try to go slow.
Well, the moon in Virgo, the moon is at 25 degrees, so it's technically out of bounds and a void moon. So that means the moon is not as strong, right? And the moon is trining Pluto, and that happens over the course of several days. Both Monday and Tuesday, the moon is in a trine to Pluto. It's also in a sextile to Mars, so activity can be really good. But yeah, it's that big T square, and Venus is sort of facilitating the conversation between the moon in Virgo and Pisces in Neptune in its rulership. So the moon in Virgo, just to remind you, a Virgo moon is all about practical intelligence. Practical intelligence would be the key word to a moon in Virgo. The moon in Virgo is intellectual, it's meticulous, it's industrious, it's steadfast, it can be very responsible and responsive. It has a very thoughtful approach, the moon in Virgo. On the challenge side, of course, there could be the critical, a little high-strung, can be argumentative. That's the challenge side of the Virgo moon. But practical intelligence is what we really focus on. And with trying to Pluto, I'm like, whew, good thing for practical intelligence, right? And so trying to Pluto would be, what are you trying to transform, right?
Well, Pluto and Aquarius could also be like AI, or maybe trying to use technology or something. Pluto is retrograde right now.
Right.
So
okay.
So it could be like maybe you're thinking about it or something. You could be reviewing some things, because retrograde usually means review, but it could be a review of your transformation, right? Okay. Or a review of your information. I'm glad there's a lot of trines in the sky, because the South Node in Scorpio is trining Saturn, and Pluto is trining Juno. Which I think is which will help bring some blessings to relationships, especially with Pluto trining Juno. I just feel like that's a blessing right now with Juno and Taurus. Although tomorrow, the very next day.
Yeah, let's talk about Tuesday, because I was just going to say, you have a lot of faded energy on Tuesday, because then the moon moves into Libra. So the moon in Libra, the keywords would be, the moon in Libra is all about artistic beauty. It's adaptable, it's creative, it's charming. Moon in Libra is diplomatic, it's good-natured. Challenge side of Libra moon is indecisive. Wants to know all the choices and then has a really hard time on pick one. Libras can sometimes be self-indulgent. They have the dependency thing that can happen with Libras. They might be a little bit on the frivolous side, changeable. But Libra and Libra moon, we know it's all about artistic beauty, don't we? And so when the moon moves into Libra, then it's still in that trine to Pluto, but now it's in a yod, the finger of God. The base is Mercury in Libra. Of course, Mercury is retrograde, Saturn in Pisces, and then it's pointing at the moon. So the faded energy is going straight towards the moon. So if you have Libra placements, early Libra placements, you're going to feel this. It's that faded energy, which means life is telling you go that way. The direction is very clear, and you just need to follow the flow. Because if you don't follow the flow, it's rug burns. That's what I would say. It's like you're going against the grain and you get rug burns. So be in the flow of whatever the emotional energy of the moon is saying. If you have a strong, all of a sudden something, your gut's telling you that way, do that thing. I'm really attracted to that, not that. Listen to your gut, listen to your intuition around that.
For sure. Especially around relationships, since Libra rules relationships.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Libra rules relationships, so
Mercury in Libra pointing at the moon in Libra. No, Mercury is not in Libra. I'm sorry. Is that where's
Mercury's in Taurus.
Sorry, Mercury's in Taurus, moon is in Libra. I wrote my note wrong. There it is. And Saturn is in Pisces, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So woo.
Yeah. And the thing is that on that day, Juno moves into Gemini. And Juno rules relationships, marriages, commitments, anything that's about commitment, anything contracts, things like that. Okay. And Juno's going to move into Gemini.
Venus.
Which means you could be talking about commitments or making commitments and contracts. It is trining Pluto, so it would probably be pretty good and okay. The thing about Gemini, though, sometimes is it can kind of be a little two-faced. So you should just be aware of that Gemini can be one way one moment and another way the other moment, literally. So just be aware that could happen. It doesn't mean all Geminis are two-faced or anything like that. That's not what it means. What I'm saying is that Juno and Gemini somebody could change their mind. Somebody could change their mind. It could just be that simple. Or something could change in your mind. You could change your mind. Okay. So, those kinds of things could happen. So you want to hold on to that while Juno makes that transit through Gemini this month, especially with Venus there. It is trining Pluto, and Pluto's retrograde, so that makes me think, like, is Pluto going to be like, maybe I shouldn't have committed to that. Like, you could find yourself doing that. And it could have something to do with a transformation or something like that. And I also notice we could just be happy that the trines and the sextiles are happening. Although overall, it's kind of ramping up for later in the week with this cross, especially with Pluto and Pallas Athena in opposition, and then Vesta and the South Node. Vesta is about your commitment, so you might be reviewing your commitments and stuff like that. What is it? The Vesta and Mercury, right? Mercury is also Mercury is conjunct Vesta. And I'm just going to say that, those kinds of things can create, Vesta is about your commitments, about where you're headed to. It's usually about spirituality, though. So it's usually about like spiritual commitments. So be aware of that. Okay. You might be questioning that or talking differently about it or recognizing that maybe you made a mistake or something. Especially with the opposition.
Yeah, you start to have a little bit of a challenging vibe on Wednesday the 3rd, because the moon is still in Libra, but again, now it's out of bounds. It's a void moon, so it's weaker. And then it's squaring Mars, and it's in a T-square with Mars because it's opposing Chiron. And so Mars is at the top of that T-square, and it's opposing Jupiter. And again, Mars is at the top of that T-square because you have that Jupiter-Chiron conjunction. And And so, you have a little bit of a little bit more of a challenge. I would say Mars is asking you, maybe asking you what you want to do about things. It's great because there's a trine. The moon is trining Venus. So again, we have that relationship vibe going on. So there could be it could be a really productive conversation. But remember, T squares are all about you got to do this or you got to do that. You got to make a choice one way or the other. What are you going to do? And when you have it paired with Mars, it's all about action, isn't it? So it's really kind of forcing a decision or asking you to make a decision one way or the other. So I love the trine to Venus on Wednesday, but the square to Mars, the opposition to Chiron and Jupiter, that could be a little bit challenging, don't you think?
Especially with Chiron involved. Chiron can just sometimes be, it can remind us of our wounds, old wounds, and things that we've inherited. So, and Jupiter they've been dancing with each other in the same sign for
a really long time.
I don't know, it feels like a long time.
It feels like a long time.
Maybe it's just me though, because I have Jupiter and Chiron in Aries, so I'm kind of like, okay. So Chiron can really stimulate those old wounds, especially when it's squaring things. So you might find yourself with recognizing some old wounds again. So what day are you on now, Bright Hawk?
The third.
The third, and then the fourth, right? And what's happening on the fourth?
Then things really change again. You still have a T square, but now the moon is opposing the north node on the fourth. Are we on the fourth? We finished the third, right? We're moving on to the fourth. This is the again the day before the fullness of the moon. The the lunar eclipse is happening at 15 degrees Scorpio. 14 degrees 56 seconds, I think. So we'll call it 15 degrees. So on the 4th, you have a grand trine, which means everything is in the same element. So you have Venus in Gemini, the moon opposing Saturn, and that makes the base. So the moon's in Scorpio, Saturn is in Pisces, and Venus is in Gemini. So you have an air trine. Well, that's air and water. Why is it called a grand trine? If Saturn is in Pisces, the moon is in Scorpio. Scorpio's water?
Yeah, but I didn't think the moon got into Scorpio till May 5th, but maybe it would be on the 4th.
It gets in on the 4th.
Okay.
Where you are.
And I don't think it should be in opposition to Saturn at that point because Saturn's in Pisces. The opposite of Pisces is Virgo.
Well, it's a triangle.
Oh, okay. It's a trine. Okay.
So the base of it.
Trine. Okay.
And then you also have 2 T squares with the moon. Basically, if you draw a line between the moon and the north node, you see that's the base of the one triangle, and it goes to Pluto on the other side is the T square. And then the moon obviously still opposing Jupiter, and then Pluto again is the top of the T square. So Pluto, the planet of transformation, is facilitating the conversation between the moon and Scorpio.
And that'll have a lot to do with the eclipse on May 5th, right? Because, I mean, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So,
right.
So the eclipse day, which is May 5th, is sort of the end of this eclipse this time. This is the lunar eclipse, right?
Lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse
in Scorpio and Taurus.
Right.
And the thing about that is that, so you can see the eclipse in the astrology chart. You can see how down at the bottom there, the moon is at 14 degrees and the sun is at 14 degrees Taurus. So the sun is just a circle with a dot in it at the top of the chart there in the 10th house. And down there at the 4th house is Scorpio, the moon in Scorpio. And you can see how there's a red line going from one to the other, right? Yeah, that's because they're in opposition. And oppositions. And yeah, and they're, opposition essentially means across the map, right? Across the chart from them. And you can also see there that Pluto and Pallas Athena are across from each other. And it's kind of creating a little bit of a cross, right? And then, of course, the south node is at 4 degrees Scorpio. And, of course, it's always across from the north node. But check it out. Mercury's joining that conversation there. As Nadia Shaw would call it, a conversation. And so I just start to wonder where you start to wonder about your strategy. How's that going to affect things? Because Pluto is part of this as well, and then plus you got the eclipse with Scorpio, which is kind of strategic anyway. It's definitely the detective, so it's going to want more information. And the information might actually be more intuitive with the moon there. And then with Taurus, the sun in Taurus is going to be very practical. What's the practical thing to do here? How do we solve this problem in a practical way? But it might also be, which way is easier? Because Taurus doesn't usually like to, climb the mountain. They're going to go around the mountain. Okay. So, it's more like, they're going to take the luxurious route, if you will. So that's the thing about, Scorpio, and the sun in Taurus is I'm like thinking that you're probably going to choose the easier route, which is okay. Hey, I say if there's an easier way to do it easier. Don't make things hard on yourself.
Right?
Don't do it.
Make it harder.
No.
Everything's hard enough.
No, life is hard. Don't make it harder just for the sake of, well, some people like to do that.
Well, you have some pretty nice energy coming into the eclipse. No doubt it will be intense. It's an eclipse. But as you come in, as the moon is in Scorpio and we're coming into the eclipse, the moon is trining Venus, trining Saturn, trining Neptune. Those are all blessings. Those are all flowy, flowy, flowy energies. You already know it's also opposing Mercury, right? So that's a little bit of the challenge. Now, the thing that I find so interesting is that because it's right in the middle of Scorpio, those who have fixed signs, because Scorpio is a fixed sign. So if you're a Taurus, a Leo, or a Scorpio, or an Aquarius, and you have placements between 10 degrees and 20 degrees, those will be the spots where it gets lit up. So if you look at your chart and you look at, okay, what do I have between 10 degrees and 20 degrees? Check that first. Then what sign is it in? And then we look at that from how far is that away from Scorpio and what kind of aspect it is. So if you're a fixed sign, this will impact you a little bit more. You're going to feel it a little bit more for sure. And just to remind you that the moon in Scorpio is imaginative, can also be secretive, is determined and idealistic, can be very ambitious. The shadow side of moon in Scorpio can be obstinate, secretive, jealous, resentful. But really, Scorpio moon is very spiritual. It's very, very spiritual, very idealistic in hoping and seeing what's possible.
Do you think this eclipse, because I think it was last year, we had other eclipses in Taurus, Scorpio. Do you think it will be related to that similar topic that you had then? So, if you were deeply affected by those two eclipses last year, like, will this be the final one? Am I understanding that correctly? I think Ann Ortley talks about that.
So, because what I've studied so far, and Ann Ortley is a great source of information, the nodes stay in a sign for about 2 to 2.5 years. Okay. And so this part of what makes this eclipse, the last eclipse, the new moon eclipse that we had, the solar eclipse that we had, unusual was that the where the eclipse and where the nodes were actually different signs that doesn't usually happen. It's usually they're all in the same sign. So this is sort of that click, click, click. So when we look at ecliptic cycles, we're usually looking at what happened 2 years ago, how long, what got set in motion, so to speak, or was there an ending? We talked last time about how eclipses are all about the cycle of life, right? The cycle of life has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has and after every ending, we all know comes next a beginning. So
Hopefully.
that's really and eclipses are also known for revelation. Ecliptic, right? You always talk about the eclipse of the heart and what we see that we didn't see or know before. That's a lot of what eclipses can bring as well. Powerful time. So yeah, I think those degrees, those signs, and how things have been for the last several years. It all starts to add up, but you have to look forwards, backwards.
Yeah, I was just wondering, since I think this is the last one this time in Scorpio Taurus, and then they'll move on to Aries Libra.
Yeah, the next eclipse will be a new moon solar eclipse in Libra, October 14th.
Right.
That'll be at 21 degrees in Libra. And then,
Right.
of course, it'll be followed 2 weeks later by the lunar eclipse in Scorpio.
Right. Well, my friends, just eclipse energy. Definitely check out that song, Total Eclipse of the Heart. Essentially, it just means that something really changes, something really flips,
And
something goes from black to white.
Right. And I find it so interesting that on the 6th, following this eclipse, we have 2 yods, 2 fingers of God. And one points to the moon, and the base is Venus and the North Node pointing to the moon. And then the other one is the base is the moon and Pluto pointing at Venus. There's definitely a conversation happening between moon and Venus for sure. And then the North Node is all about our destiny, our fate. And Pluto, we again talking about transformation.
Yeah, and I seen, you were talking about destiny. There's this yod with the moon and all that. There's also a grand trine,
Oh my.
in water. And so it's like the day after. So if something does happen to you, you're going to have a major emotional opening the next day, and it's going to come real easy. It's going to be a realization. It's going to be a aha moment, or you might even be like, now I know what I have to do. Now I know what needs to be done. Even if it's not really like an aha moment, it's like, I have to do it this way, or that's just not going to work for me, and it's going to be in water. So it's going to be healing, grand trines in water are usually healing and deeply emotional,
have like policy grand trine that really marks the healers. If you have that in your chart, if you have a grand trine, particularly in water, that's what that tells us.
And it tells us that you're an emotional healer, right? So you're a mental health healer, especially,
water.
And that's exactly what I do, right? I'm a coach. I'm a coach, and and so you just want to pay attention to that grand trine in water that happens the very next day. I feel like, so whatever happens to you on the eclipse, just know that the next day, it's just going to last for that little bit of time as you come up to May 5th. But by the time you get to May 6th, it's going to be like, oh, you're going to finally know what to do.
Yeah. And if you're like me, the last several eclipses, I have felt the intensity building. And, eclipses can be really intense energy, I gotta say. But the beautiful thing about the sort of the other side of this eclipse, you have a lot of you have a lot of trines, and you even have a grand trine leading into the eclipse, a grand trine coming out of the eclipse, and you just have this feeling of, oh, it's just like easy flowing energy. It's downhill from here. Oh, I know what I need to do. Boom, boom, boom. Everything happens. Boom, 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 boom.
And
So
with the yod even.
so if you feel like the
Yeah.
beginning of the week is OMFG, I can't even believe how intense it is. Why is everything so hard? Hang on. Hang on. It'll be okay.
Yep.
And it'll get easier by the end of the week. And once the eclipse happens in the middle of the week, you're going to feel like, okay, okay, all right, now.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
Yeah. And by the time you
give
get to,
yourself room to breathe. Give yourself some credit. Don't give yourself a hard time, my friends. You really, we're all in for a ride. We are all on this ride together. When we talk about eclipses, everybody feels it. Some people are going to feel it more intensely. We've talked about that already. But you're going to get through it. And on the backside of it, may you be blessed, 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 blessed.
yeah. And with that yod, I feel like the whole thing is destined, eh?
Yeah,
And by the time you get to the 7th, there's going to be a kite.
that's right.
So Sunday comes in with this kite, and I took out some of the aspects so it would be a little bit easier to see here. You can see the kite. And again, remember with a kite, you want to get all the corners going so you can fly high. So recognize where you came from. Recognize how that affects your system, especially your emotional system, especially your relationships, and how that feels. And get that focused. Make sure you do your best in communicating, because if you can get all those things flying together, it will just, once you put all the pieces in the puzzle together. I notice it's in a lot in water. So you know what? Take a walk in the woods. Go be with nature. Go sit under a tree. Go hug a tree. It helps me. Sometimes I just put my hand on the tree and I feel like the tree communicates with me and helps me recognize the universe's language, because trees are connected to each other all across the planet. And so then when you're able to just put your hand on a tree, you can kind of connect to the universal message, I think, or like messages from above, or go out and look at the stars or something. Just find some way to connect with nature, because that's going to help your emotional well-being. That's going to help you reconnect to yourself. That's going to help you recenter. That's going to help you find what you need to find, okay? How you need to connect, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I would definitely do something fun on the weekend, because the moon moves into Sag, and of course the moon sparkles in Sag. The moon in Sag is adventurous and optimistic, exuberant, open-minded, sincere. The challenge side of a Sag moon is you can get restless. So do something with that energy. Sag can sometimes be irresponsible. They can sometimes be careless. They don't always mean to be, but it can happen. And they might struggle with extravagance or being uncommitted or something. So my advice would be Sag loves to play. So do something fun on the weekend that helps you refill your cup. Whatever lights you up, whatever gives you that feeling of, it's good to be alive.
Right? I think that's the best way to just connect with this kite on May 7th.
Yeah.
And get through the
week. I feel good about the weekend.
Yeah, by the time you get to the weekend, it could be really nice. May 6th, May 7th. Really connect there. That could be a really great way to just take off. And so grateful. You and I, Bright Hawk, will be celebrating our anniversary, our wedding anniversary on that weekend, just because May 9th is like in the middle of the week. So that's the weekend that we chose to go away and have our little getaway. So isn't that beautiful? Well, I followed my intuition. Well done,
Feels like one of the best things I ever did. Marry you. Good thing.
Yeah,
great.
Definitely one of my best choices was to follow my instinct, And so if you ever wonder, how would I ever get into a relationship with someone that I really love and feel compatible with? My suggestion to you is, first of all, let the universe know that you want that.
Good point.
Make a list of the things you want in a person. Make a list of things you don't want. And I did.
It works.
And then I also just said to the universe, but ultimately I leave it up to you. And could you please bring me someone that's compatible with my astrology? Because I felt like such a weirdo, and now I know why with Uranus on my ascendant. It kind of can make you feel a little bit like a weirdo. It can make you feel a little bit like, what's wrong with me? And that's kind of the transgender experience. So if you're trans or non-binary, look at your ascendant, your AC, or the line between your 12th and your first house there, the arrow on the left-hand side. If Uranus is there, well, you are amongst many. And it's not the only marker for non-binary people, but a lot of non-binary and queer people have Uranus there or near there. And so as a result, I felt like a weirdo. But I'll tell you what, it was so strange when I seen Bright Hawk, because something happened. I felt like Cupid hit me with an arrow or something. And then I was like, why? And I'm not usually like that. I don't usually fall for people I don't talk to. I think we call that demisexual. I'm demisexual. I like the brain. The brain is the most attractive thing to me. But man, me and Brighthawk, we could get down with talking. We could talk for hours, and it's still like that. We are at 9 years together, and we still will lose all track of time. 6 hours will pass.
And not fight. We never have an issue.
And we spend a lot of time talking. So it's a funny thing, and it's because we're astrologically aligned.
Really
because that's what I asked for. And it just so happens so did Brighthawk. She kind of also asked the universe to send her someone that was well matched
and healthy.
And you made a list, right? You made a list too.
My hair, and I was like,
oh, I thought you had a list in your under your Buddha statue or something that you showed me. You showed it to me. Yeah.
Another way to make your magic happen is you write it out, and you write it down 3 times on 3 different pieces of paper. And then you put one piece of paper on your altar, one piece of paper, I think you burn.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then the other piece of paper, I don't remember.
It sounds like a spell that someone came up with.
But it works.
Mm-hmm.
It really works.
Mm-hmm.
And just even the act of writing it out 3 times, you start to get really clear. So the funny thing is I was writing the list out of who I wanted in relationship to who I was willing to live with, because I had a change in my house situation, and I was like, okay, if I'm gonna have roommates, you know how this goes. They need to pay their bills. They need to be happy, well-adjusted people. They need to be, whatever. The list was the list. And I didn't think about it in relationship to, I'm going to have a relationship with this person. I just was hoping that if I had somebody in my house, it was somebody that I felt good about living with. And then I just gave it up to the universe, and look what happened. Better than I could have ever imagined. Isn't that fun?
It was beautiful. And I think over time we both started to recognize that it was actually really special and really and so I also want to say that if you have relationship troubles, I want to encourage you to do the synastry in your astrology chart, because Brighthawk and I do have one opposition. We have one opposition. So that's like the hardest challenge. So if you are studying astrology and you're like, well, I know how to do synastry, Hollis, but you're in a relationship with someone, the hardest aspects will probably be the opposition. So, and that's just the red line that goes directly across. So if your sun is directly across from their moon, you're probably going to do stuff that emotionally hurts them without even meaning to, or, so it's going to be those kinds of things. So,
it's the opportunity of where you can learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we've tried to embrace it. There are definitely just a couple of things where I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from Hollis, and I'm really grateful for them helping me grow into the best version of me. And I think that's what astrology does.
And that's what the squares will indicate. Our squares indicate transformation for both of us. And so you'll probably, if you want to look for the little square aspects in synastry will really help you sort of, those will be the areas that are like to grow, and the trines will be, and the sextiles will be the super easy stuff that just comes easy for the two of you.
Right.
So that's how you do a synastry chart in a relationship. But that's a simple.
You can always get free charts at Astrodienst. There's so many resources out there. Highly recommend that you just arm yourself with your own information, because there's no one like you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in all of my relationships, all of the troubles showed up right there in the astrology chart almost every time.
Oh, wow.
So if you just look at that, you can be like, oh, there it is. And including relationships like with your kids, with your parents, with your siblings, anything like that, you can do the synastry chart, and it will really give you a good insight into your relationship with them.
Great idea. I don't know why more parents and children don't look at that.
Yeah, I agree. I was glad to look at me and my son's synastry. It totally makes sense why we get along so well. We have great synastry. We're full of trines and sextiles, and our relationship was pretty at ease most of the time. So, so that's an interesting thing. And then you can also find out if you and your partner are meant to do something special, or you guys have your south nodes, aligned or something like that, then you guys came from kind of a similar place. So, you have a lot in common probably, and a lot to go towards together too. So, so I find that the synastry chart is priceless. I hope that helps. I won't be doing cards today because I just plain out forgot to bring my cards. It's just that simple. But hey, I just gave you a bunch of extra information about synastry. And synastry is a lot of fun. I've been doing synastry since for a long time. It's even when the first time I did Bright Hawk's chart back in like 2012, I think it was.
Yeah, I think
when we first became friends before we started dating. I wanted to understand why I felt like Cupid hit me and why I couldn't get this woman out of my brain. And I was like, what is going on here? And so I looked at her chart and I was like, oh, okay. And because very quickly it became clear to me that we were twin flames or something, that we had some special calling together, because her yod in her thing, my Saturn is on top of her moon. So essentially my foundation helps point Bright Hawk towards her destiny.
Absolutely helpful.
And I was like, and so I knew there was something, and I knew that there wasn't anything I could do to stop, slow, or resist it, even though I did try. And
there was resistance.
We both tried.
I would say our first Let's Dance program, where we went into a room, classic memory care unit, chaos, depressing, yelling. Slowly got everybody into a circle, got the name tags on them, put me in the middle. I started playing music. Hollis started doing what they do so very, very well. And we walked out of that place and I was like, I don't know what just happened, but I'm going to call it magic. That was magic. And the energy between the two of us was just flowed. There was zero resistance, and it was just so obvious that we were meant to do this together.
And it was easy.
Both of us. It would just unfold. And
yeah, it was interesting.
550 programs, if you can believe that. We've done 500 and over 550 programs in 32 states.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
And we've never, I don't think we've ever had a whole lot of resistance. Like, I'll say, hey, Bright Hawk, you might want to try this. And you'll be like, hey, Hollis, you might want to try that. But outside of that, we haven't had any resistance within the program itself. at all, even though we've done however many 550 programs.
And I can't tell you how many times I've said I would never want to do this without Hollis. You know, as a performer, it's one thing to go into those places and perform, but what we do is so different because it's not just me. What Hollis is doing is vital, 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 vital. Such an equal measure part of both of us. And that's what makes the program work really, really well. It's very exciting.
Yeah, helping them like just engage and not just fall
Yeah.
asleep, and
Yeah.
helping them, kick their feet, put their hands up, and get a little bit of exercise, which most of them need a little extra exercise. So, and then even just the singing and engagement and having the ability, the knowledge, and the experience to be able to engage with those people. And the gift, it's a gift. We were just watching a show the other night. It's my gift to be able to engage with people like that. And I have a lot of 12th house.
It's a lot about connection. And that connection is what life is about, right? You don't have to be living in one of these places to recognize the importance of connection. Human to human, connecting is really important. So, and healing and vital to our well-being. So it's good to connect with all of you. I hope that this moon report, this Rainbow Soulstrology report, helps you navigate the week and navigate this eclipse. Remember, by the weekend, have a good time. Give yourself something that's fun and rewarding.
Yeah, try to have a good time on the weekend, May 6th, May 7th, Saturday, Sunday. And my friends, please subscribe, please comment, please share. Like, thumbs up.
You can ask a question. We'd love to help you. If you want to ask something specific, we're really excited to help anybody that asks really great questions. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I love answering questions. I love try to help you out. I'm happy to help people out. Even if you post your chart, I'll look at it and try to give you some feedback. So I'd love to see what you got to say. And my friends, just reach out. We love you. We appreciate you. And I'm sure Lacrosse will be back here next week. So we'll send our love out to Lacrosse. Hopefully he's able to just fix it. Just easy. Just easy.
Is focused on his inner badger, right? Aren't we in the season of the badger? The nature's little engineer. So
the beaver.
It's like something's not quite right. Beaver.
Yeah.
Sorry, nature's little engineer is the beaver.
Well,
builder. So hopefully Lacrosse is, getting it done, whatever it is. And we're very, very thankful. And we're thankful to you. Thanks so much for making Rainbow Soulstrology a part of your viewing.
All right, my friends. Have a good week. Happy eclipse.
Yeah.
And bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoy this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.